That's how you know you're in a professional podcast, folks. That kind of production value behind our opening music. Hi, welcome to the BAMF Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Lafferty, here today to discuss Episode 4, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. With me today, Mr. Jim Seals, labeled Turkish Delight.
Hello. How's everyone doing?
Doing all right. We were just pre-show remarking upon your sartorial efforts today.
Yep. I have my sassy drink. I've got my purple short on, and I've got some actual Turkish Delights.
God damn, Jim is living his best life. I gotta say I'm jealous right now.
Sassy Zemo is it's a mood for me.
All right, cool. And speaking of sassy, Mr. Jason Tondra was here rocking the plaid today. How are you doing, sir?
I'm very good. It's freezing in my apartment, so I've got like lots of shirts on. Forgive me.
I'm in Colorado. I'm wearing a sweater. I understand completely. So, Jacob Blackman is here. How you doing, Jacob?
I am well.
Oh, wow. You sound like a documentary narrator.
He was not well, despite what he said.
And last but not least, coming to us from his bat cave in Pennsylvania is Mike Myler. How you doing, sir?
My Pittsburgh bat cave. I'm good, generally.
All right, cool. Pittsburgh needs a Batman. So, all right. So, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I just want to throw this out there. It was burning up Twitter today, the thing about the Wakandans taking off Bucky's arm.
Yeah.
How do we feel about that?
That's
Well, it's their property.
White dude shit to say.
Yeah, if I gave someone a robot arm, I'd want to have a kill switch to make sure he couldn't use it against me. I can understand their point of view completely. What do you guys think?
It's not someone. It's like a brainwashed Cold War horror story assassin. So yeah, of course I'm amazed they had to touch it to activate it. It should have been a button that they just clicked and his arm just flew off or punched him in the face. That would have been better. If they just pulled out like a little thing like clank, and he was bam, bam, like I would have loved that.
I think the car fob moment would have really made it. There's like beep beep.
Yeah.
And like stop punching yourself. Stop punching. All right. Yeah. Jim, do you have thoughts?
So I actually do have thoughts about this scene. I saw the Twitter controversy about an hour ago to see what other people were saying about it and to see how I took it. My problem with it is the ableism present in the sequence. I don't have so much problem with the mechanics. This whole show, one of the commenters on my own Twitter feed has been commenting, it's all about like, do the ends justify the means? And in the Wakanda situation, making sure that you had a way to stop the Winter Soldier from actually physically holding someone, for them justify those means. For me, the issue was the implication. The implication goes far beyond just I lost my arm and now I only have one arm. It goes to the fact that the episode opens with Bucky, the flashback 6 years ago, with Bucky like having to face the activation wounds. The reminder happens in the next scene where he thanks the Wakandan. He thanks Shuri for helping him be able to claim his own identity, to claim agency, to break out of the brainwashing thing. And then all of a sudden, his arm is taken away. The implication was it was just done so easily and flippantly that maybe possibly they can erase the recovery of his mind. Like Bucky's an emotionally and mentally fragile character, and it just seemed really flippant the way it was handled in the episode.
I thought it was really interesting, and I've been very interested in the Twitter conversation about this scene. I find that the black creators who are saying, look, like this is totally in character for the Wakandans. If we think back to the film, like the whole concept of is Wakanda going to share its technology with other cultures is the whole point of that movie, right? Like that's the dilemma. Like, well, we might, but we got to keep real careful track of it. Like we've got to be careful with what happens. So it makes perfect sense for Wakanda to have a tripwire, sort of failsafe in there. The thing that made the scene for me is a couple of things. First off, Bucky's look of shock and frankly humiliation when his arm falls off is so perfect. Like the actor just totally sells that bit, and it's also forgive me, a totally gameable moment. I have literally run this game. When a player character is fighting some bad guy with high tech, and the player character doesn't have the physical power, but okay, well, is there some way that I can like turn off his armor or like short circuit his device with like a martial punch or something? Like I have literally GM'd that scene, and so it totally called out to me, and I was like, I remember that game. Like, so it kind of got me that way. But I do think one last thing. I do think that this conversation about is that the whole scene falls into that do the ends justify the means conversation. I think that's true. And I think that the conflict here over like the ambiguity we have over is it okay or is it not okay for the Wakandans to have done this is part of the show, the series-long conversation about what are you willing to do to get what you want, and if there's a line, where is that line, and do you cross it? So I like it. I thought it was good.
It's a Batman move, though, right?
Yeah, it totally is a Batman move. But also, and Jim's observation about how it echoes off of the opening scene with Bucky. It also specifically mirrors the way that that Walker's shield gets neutralized, right? Like Bucky loses his arm, they take away Bucky's arm, and they also immobilize Cap with his own shield, right? Which again is humiliating. But what's beautiful is the way that those two characters responded differently, right? Bucky, like, did you know they could do that? No. And he's not happy about it, right? He's clearly not happy. But he puts the arm back on and he gives it the old spin, and he puts it behind him. He moves on. But Walker can't move on, right? Like his humiliation is immobilized on his face, and now it's a meme. Now it's a they weren't even super soldiers meme, right?
Am I reading too much into this if I speculate that if we compare how the Wakandans deal with at the beginning of the show, there was life was hard for African Americans, and we were showing that in several different ways. And we see how the Wakandans are handling themselves here. I wonder if that's almost like a contrast to that situation.
Well,
maybe I'm reading too much into it. You go ahead.
Well, it could certainly be. I mean, if to some degree the show is about blackness, but Sam is specifically dealing with Black American issues, right?
Yeah,
like being a black man in America, and
they posit that the Dora Milaje have jurisdiction wherever the Dora Milaje are.
Right.
So like they kind of say like, hey, this is Wakanda right now because we're here.
Yeah.
And that is an inherently imperialist message.
You're right.
We all heal, therefore we have jurisdiction is imperial. Yeah. That is empire. That's not how they were presented in Wakanda.
Well,
but it's also the exact same stance that Captain America was taking place at that same time.
Exactly.
And had been doing pretty much the entire time he's been in Europe during this show.
When Killmonger takes over the Wakandan throne, he says the sun will never set on the Wakanda Empire, and the Dora Milaje are standing right there next to him, right?
Yes, but they disagreed with that.
But that and $1.50 will get you a cup of coffee at Starbucks, right? Like, okay, you disagreed with him, but you still executed the command, right? Anyway, I'm just trying to underline Jim's point. Like, you're right. There's I think the show is showing that great edge that the Wakandans are walking, the Dora Milaje are walking. Like, well, I have a goal. Am I willing to be imperialist to accomplish my goal? Their goal is good. They want to get Zemo and execute justice upon him for the death of their king. That's a valid goal. That's a just goal. But then we get to see them in this murky gray area where they're trying to figure out what are they willing to do to accomplish that goal. And I like there are no clear answers, and I like that.
I would ask because they do have that like moment of validation where or lack of validation where Sam's like, hey, did you know about that? And he's like, no, I had no idea they could punch me 10 times and knock the thing out. So like if he had known, would that change this for either of you?
Interesting. I don't know. Maybe.
There would have been at least consent. Like, here's your arm. By the way, you can't use this arm against us.
You know,
like if you raise this hand against Wakandan or Wakandan interest, we will take the hand away.
Yeah.
If he knew that, it's drastically different reading of that scene. Like then he's knowingly breaking Zemo out, saying that they can take away a part of my body.
He would never have gone into that fight. Even because he was trying to just kind of like.
He didn't want to. He was like, "Oh, you're looking strong, John. That was a great freaking line."
Well, you notice that Sam and Bucky didn't start in the fight at all. They just watched it happen until they felt things were going a little far.
I have to confess, I did when Zemo just watches everybody else get in a fight and then he withdraws to the bathroom. I was like, oh Jesus Christ! Like, come on, guys. I mean, that was the GM saying, okay, I'm going to give everybody a hero point if you get in a fight right now, right? Like, and they were like, no, but Zemo will get away, and you was like, hero point. You son of a bitch, I'm in. Like that's what was going on here. The players are getting bribed.
Exactly.
Maybe we should do these podcasts from a game designer perspective, where we're like, in this scene.
Always, I love those.
Yeah, it's hard for me to not watch these shows and do that. But
yeah, there's also I don't know. There was something about Bucky's reaction in the scene when the arm was removed. It wasn't just the loss of the arm. It's like he didn't know what to do with himself.
Yeah.
Once it was gone, and I kind of got the idea that if you notice, he didn't have the arm in the Wakanda scene, so I get the idea that he didn't wear a cyber arm until like the Thanos war was going to happen while he was in Wakanda. So he had that time of peace where he didn't have to fight, and like maybe if they just took the arm, I no longer have to be the Winter Soldier. I can just live peacefully. I don't know. It's just something that passed through my mind when I was watching that scene and watching his expression.
It's a neat idea because when I first saw it seems like, my literature degree kicks in and I'm thinking, okay, so it's like an emasculation scene, right? Like taking away the power. But I love your view of it, where it's like, well, hell, maybe if it's part of this long ongoing conversation that the superhero genre is having about the desire to reject power, as Jim has put it, to refuse the call to adventure.
Yeah.
Right. And we've seen Sam refuse the call to adventure multiple times during the show. Maybe that was Bucky's chance to escape the call to adventure. Like, I don't have to be, and I can just go back and herd goats in Wakanda if I lose this arm. Like, that's an interesting idea.
But as I was saying before, with the similarities between what Captain America was doing at Dora Milaje, there's been lots of depictions, and rightly so, of the United States overstepping their bounds and overstepping their jurisdiction because we're the greatest nation ever. No, Wakanda is the greatest nation ever, and so it's that whole sucks when it happens to you, doesn't it? Moment that you don't often get to see. And I kind of like that in the whole smacking the bullies down kind of way.
Yeah,
I kind of take issue with Wakanda is the best country.
Latveria, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay.
And here's why is because like Latveria was funny. I was going to make that joke, so you headed me off at the pass. They haven't been on the international stage. Like, they haven't been interacting with anything. They've been concealed with their technology.
Yeah.
And they'll magic, they'll magic tech, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they haven't had to interact with anyone up to this point. And that was Killmonger's issue. right? Killmonger's issue is you guys were having a great time being this awesome empire within your own country. Meanwhile, I have been struggling on the streets of Oakland.
Yeah. The arc of Wakanda and T'Challa by the end of that film is his acknowledgement that his cousin had a point.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Absolutely.
Is that one thing that's missing? Is I thought one scene I loved in Black Panther was at the end where they're doing outreach into urban America.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we didn't see anything past that end scene. It seems like I'd like to see more of that.
My theory on that was because of what happened with Thanos. They were going to start all the outreach, and then Thanos, sends an army to Wakanda and just tears it up. And now they have to fix their own country again.
We gotta talk about all this stuff Mike's showing on the video here. Like,
I know he's trying to go straight for the meat. You save it for the end,
Walker takes the super soldier serum, decapitates a dude with the shield. Like, we gotta get it.
Yeah.
I don't know. If I got the feeling he disemboweled him. Like, I thought it was like hidden him in the bottom of the rib cage.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it matters where he hit him.
Yeah. I mean, like, if it was the head, I feel like we would have seen the head roll. But I guess it is Disney now, so probably not.
Yeah.
Well, they did want to decapitate Captain America in Endgame.
Oh, did they?
They were going to have those apparently were scripted and animated in animatics, where Thanos goes like either jumps forward in time or backwards in time and chops off Steve's head and then presents it to Steve. I'm super glad it didn't show up in the movie. Like, Thanos didn't need that. Like, that's putting a hat on a hat.
Trouble explaining that to my 8-year-old.
Yeah,
that might cause some unnecessary drama.
Yeah, that's a very much an Iron Age kind of thing. That's not
Zack Snyder's Avengers.
And the MCU is very much not Iron Age. It's pretty solidly Bronze Age.
Oh, interesting factoid came out last week. Less than 50% of the people who started Zack Snyder's Justice League finished it.
That's a very long movie.
It's a very long movie.
Unfortunately, I have finished it. And
I remembered we're not here for Captain America.
It's pretty obvious that they didn't do a really good psychological profile on Walker before putting him in the suit, as they should have, because he's got some serious PTSD going on.
Well, of course, the neat thing about this is that now we go back to the old argument about the super soldier serum in the first place. It goes all the way back to the first film, right? Like, what does it do? It amplifies whatever you've already got going on, right?
Exactly.
So, now, Walker, before the serum, might have had issues, but he was not a psychopath like he's now kind of turning into. He had that kind of gung-ho, we can accomplish anything attitude that often, quite frankly, soldiers need in the field of battle, right? Like that kind of, I can do it, I can do whatever I need to kind of, that's kind of part of being a special ops guy, But when his inferiority complex gets triggered by getting defeated by the Dora Milaje, who kind of represent everything that is the opposite of his American exceptionalist creed, right? They're black women from Africa, right?
Wielding spears.
With spears, yeah. Like, and he got the way his shield got used against him. Like, it was a humiliating moment, and he takes the serum, then, and bad becomes worse, right? In the to quote the first film. It's really interesting. I like the films. I like the whole series conversation about means and ends. Jim, correct me if I'm wrong. Like you're the Zemo guy here. Apparently, he did state that he was reading Machiavelli in prison, right?
Yes.
Yeah. The books that are getting name dropped in this show are crazy. Like we had the Hobbit reference in episode 2, where they straight up talk about the Hobbit coming, and then this episode has it C.S. Lewis line the Witch in the Wardrobe reference. I mean, you don't use Turkish Delight if you're not aware you're quoting that movie or that book, right?
Yeah. It's like a lot of the music references that they kept putting up in the Luke Cage series. This one's hitting the book references.
Someone in that writer's room is a big fan of like 1930s fantasy fiction. I can't know why this movie would have not, those books got named.
I kind of feel like when the previous series names, brings up the ship of Theseus.
Yeah.
You gotta like work on a literary reference here or there, just try to keep up. And William Kane, commenter, thanks for watching, Will. Appreciate it. Ultimately, the Wakandans decide not to reclaim the arm, letting Bucky know that he blew his first chance for giving him another. And I think that's a good point. Because if they had just taken his arm away and said, "Hey, sucks to be you, lefty."
Well, I was thinking about this. I think it's interesting that they left it that they did not take it. It's a gift.
Because they could have.
Well, they could have, but they gave it to him. It seems to me like it doesn't belong to them anymore. They know how they don't want it used against them. That's the rule. But it doesn't belong to them. It belongs to him. That's not why. And similarly, they didn't take the shield because it doesn't belong to them either. I don't know. I guess this is kind of a fine point, but I think that's why they left it because it doesn't belong.
Well, technically, all vibranium belongs to Wakanda.
Well, maybe. I mean, then why didn't they? Okay. Why didn't they take the shield then?
Yeah.
Shield's made of vibranium. Why didn't they?
They weren't there for that. They were there for Zemo. Always keep your eyes on the mission objective.
While they were fighting, he went through the bathroom and down the toilet. So you fuck that.
He casually walked out of
those points and extenuating circumstances.
Our Bratwurst belongs to Germany. Sorry. That was really hilarious in my head. I'm sorry, guys. Please continue.
All right. So there's a couple other things. So we've definitely gone to the micro of this one moment because it did cause kind of a 24-hour Twitter storm.
Yeah.
With a lot of people having comments and thankfully the conversation, from what I saw at least, from the few minutes I spent with it, I think everyone was still respectful. They voiced their opinions and it didn't go into the attacking sides issue of it. So the episode in the whole, we're given, like, let's focus on Sam. Like we can get to John Walker, but let's save John Walker to the end. Let's focus on Sam's choice to try to come to a peaceful resolution.
Yeah.
Like the idea that he actually, I think, Jason, you brought this up in a thread post that you made over the last couple of days, which is Sam isn't exercising all the options.
Yeah.
Like he has an option of force. He just break into this funeral and snatch her up because he has flights and they don't. But he doesn't decide that. He decides he's going to, extend the olive branch to have a conversation as opposed to having a fist fight.
Yeah, in this show, if we talk about means to an end, the character on the far side is John Walker, who will do anything to accomplish his objective. The end justifies the means in every case. Sam is the guy on the opposite side. He's the guy who intentionally leaves means on the table. The shield being the most obvious example. I'm going to choose not to use this thing to accomplish my goals, and to an extreme, I think to a fault. Like he's starting to realize over the course of the show that giving the shield up at the beginning was a mistake. But the middle character is Carly. Carly is the character who is on the wire, on the edge. She's done bad things. She has crossed the line. She blows up a building full of people. She threatens Sam's nephews. But her goals are good. And if she would just not do that bad shit, she would be a hero. And so she's kind of in many ways the fulcrum character that everybody else is either too far to the left or too far to the right. And she's kind of like that character that I think the audience and the writers are most interested in which way does she go. Yep. I jumped in.
I really liked her line of, had we not all been put together in the same place, we all would have been taught to hate each other in life. I kind of liked that line.
That's Flag Smasher stuff right there.
Yeah, Carly. Sam wants to help Carly. He wants to bring her back, and Sam is the voice of the audience. Like Bucky never speaks. He's like the guy that stares at you for 20 minutes, right? When Sam talks, he's the voice of the audience and the voice of the writers. And Sam wants to bring Carly back. Now, he had a harder time the second time. Like the first time he went and he was talking to her, and then the fight breaks out, and then she threatens his nephews. And then when he comes back, he's in uniform. He's suited up that time now, right? Now he's a little bit more like, you threaten my nephews. He's angrier about it because that was not a line that's got crossed. Some people have said, like, look, she was never really going to hurt the kids. Okay, that doesn't excuse it. If I say I'm going to threaten your children, but I never actually intend to, are you saying that it's okay that I do that? No. Like the threat alone is too much. The threat is over the line. And not only that, I don't trust Carly to not actually carry through on that. She blows up a building full of people after she's already got what she wanted. Like she's on that edge.
Well, that and she is told, because she listens to the BBC news report, that there was one man who just started 2 days before that and is a father of two.
Yeah.
And how does she refer to him? She refers to him later when Sam's reaching out, when Sam's trying to make a connection.
Yeah.
By saying he's a speed bump.
Yeah.
He was collateral damage to whole ends.
Yeah. I want Carly to be redeemed here, but she's done terrible things. She's going to have to pay for that. And I'm trusting the show to not let her off the hook for the bad shit she's done.
Speaking of not letting people off the hook for the bad shit they've done,
yeah.
I want to briefly segue to talk about Zemo, because they finally took a second to villainize him just a little bit.
Yeah.
And then they retracted it, right? They're like, ba black sheep, ooh, horror music. And it's like, here's some candy. And the next time you see him, here's some money. And then the kids are like never in danger the whole time. So it's like, well, okay, so he just gave these kids some candy and money for a little bit of like, that's not that bad. Like compared to what else happens in this episode, this is really not very villainous.
Right. You're right.
Like, are they? Do they want us to like Zemo? And then I was on Twitter, I was talking to you about it. Like, I feel I have this horrible problem where I know all the Zemo line stuff, and I actually like that villain. But like, I know they're terrible Nazis, and then MCU Zemo here is not a Nazi. He's very sympathetic.
Yeah.
And like, I want to like MCU Zemo, but on the other hand, I'm like, freaking purple-headed gray Nazi. Yeah. I'm really torn there, which is a problem from knowing the comics. But so are we supposed to like Zemo? Is that what they're telling us?
I think the answer to your question is the 6-episode structure. You are supposed to like Zemo now in episodes 3 and 4, so that you can hate him in episodes 5 and 6. Right? Like I think there's a turn coming where especially now because he's gotten away. Yeah. Right? He got away. So clearly he's gonna. There's a story there that we're gonna.
He got away from John Walker, which,
So we have to talk about Walker's final heel turn at the end of this, with everybody taking pictures of him, and the response in social media by American exceptionalists who are now cheering John Walker and consider him to be the hero of the show. Right? These are the same people, and I want to apologize if anybody out there is in this group, but who think that Rorschach is the best character of Watchmen, right? Like, we have this problem in comics fandom of picking the wrong character to idolize, right? The character that's like, a sociopathic killer, and people think, well, because he gets shit done, then that he must be the hero.
Well, I mean, like, there's no real hero in Watchmen.
Well, but I think we can agree that Rorschach is not a character that we should.
No, we should not be idolizing Rorschach. I agree. And when they wanted to use the question, and Denny O'Neil was like, "You get the hell away from the question. You are not using him for that."
Well, and to get one last, not to derail us into Watchmen too much, since I brought it up, but because Alan Moore is Alan Moore, he works very hard to make us like Rorschach by the end, right? Like that scene when Rorschach is talking to Night Owl, and he's like, "I'm sorry, it's so hard to be my friend. Thank you for being there." And like, that's a very human moment. Like we've been there, right? Like we've been taught, and we realize that sometimes it's really hard to deal with me. I'm sorry, I'm like this. All right. And
let me ask you a question. I mean,
Yeah.
Oh God, we're going on the Watchmen wormhole. That'll be the rest of the show. Sorry, but doesn't the two characters who get humanized the most in Watchmen? It's Dan Dreiberg, Night Owl, and Rorschach. Those are the two you're meant to empathize with the most. You get the most pet the dog moments with those characters, I think.
I mean, they just get the most time.
They're all sympathetic in their own way. Dreiberg is, but yeah, we should probably get back to the show.
Jim, what else about Sam did you want to talk about?
I think we've moved.
You're good. Okay,
and that's fine. I'm sort of reminded of. I'm going to take us in a slight another tangent.
Good.
There was a moment in Space Seed, which is the classic TOS episode, where all the main characters sitting in a room and they're talking about Khan and they're doing the exposition as to who Khan is, and Spock is appalled. Like you're romanticizing this dictator.
Yeah.
And Colt has a line saying that we can respect him and still be against him. And I think that's sort of where some people fall with John Walker and Rorschach and these characters, these problematic characters, where they get into the romanticism of the thing as opposed to facing the consequences. Like there's a reason the Punisher is an icon. And the show is specifically about icons and how we relate to iconography. How do we relate to Captain America? How does Bucky and Sam relate to Captain America? Versus how John Walker relates to Captain America, which he sees it as his validation. Like he's had to go through the mud of Afghanistan, and now he's being given the shield and given the trust of at least the American politicians to carry on this mantle. He's been made into a rock star. We see him sign the little sheet. Yeah. And whenever he's on a mission so far, he's been ineffectual. He's been ran roughshod by the Dora Milaje. He's been made second to all these other people. And it's like that line we brought up earlier in the episode, they weren't even super soldiers.
Yeah.
So he's got this giant inferiority complex, and he's also given, like, he finds the sword, right? So he takes it, and then he just becomes this other thing, like this damaged person becomes even more damaged.
Yeah.
But we're looking at it, we're watching the show, and those of us here on this podcast, we see it. Oh, this is clearly a police brutality analogy. People are videoing it on their cell phones. Yeah. Like this is what we're going to do with this story. And the other side of the argument, we'll watch that and see, no, he's a terrorist. They've blown up a building with 8 people in it. Right. They killed his best friend. Like this is like ends justify means kind of thing. Might makes right.
Yeah, there's an attitude that America has the right to do anything because we're America. And that's what we see Walker representing. Like, because I'm Captain America, I can do anything. Remember his line from the previous episode, right? Do you know who I am? Yeah, I know who you are. I don't care. That doesn't give you the right to do anything. It's part of that ongoing means and ends conversation. It's interesting because when we first started this show, I thought that it was about the shield and about specifically about representations of America. Like what does America mean to us? What are the symbols of America? I thought that it was a story about a veteran and a Black American and their issues. But the more that we watch it, the more this conversation about do the ends justify the means has really taken over the thematic footprint of this show for me. And now that's what it's about to me more than anything.
And to your point, Sam is also a veteran. Like in this universe, Sam is, that's why he bonds with Steve when they're doing the jogging on your left. Like they're both servicemen. Yeah. And they're trying to find a life outside of the military.
Yeah. I just want to briefly, did you guys have to read Roland Barthes' mythologies in college? Because
Barth,
yeah, exactly. And are we all aware that there was an actual Captain America statue in Brooklyn? I think about it. Oh yes, yeah. I think it was at least a couple of months, not a whole year. No, people got very mad and they pulled it down. But
Oh, okay.
my point being is that, like, essentially Captain America is at this point a myth, in the same way that Zeus is a myth. So, like, it's not just like the shield or a mantle. It's way, 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 way heavier than that.
Well, I've taught Barth.
Yeah, I was going to say,
of
course.
I disagree with Barth, and I don't think that Captain America is a myth in the same way that Zeus is a myth. But this is a complicated thing. Now, your point is valid, that he's a lot bigger than a person. He's like this kind of iconic. I'll use icon rather than person.
Yeah,
I don't want to call him a myth, only because the function of myth, Cap does not fulfill. What we thought up
Cap's
Zeus.
the myth of American exceptionalism.
We thought up Zeus. Maybe you might have something there. We thought up Zeus because we had to explain why is thunder, right? Like what there are these physical properties about the world that we don't understand, and so we create a myth to explain that physical function. Like, is it thunder is the gods bowling or whatever, right? But now when we create a myth, it doesn't work like that. Captain America is not explaining some physical law that we don't understand. But your argument that maybe he does, in the sense that he becomes a rationalization for America to do whatever it wants, because America is always right, because Captain America is always right. And so if Captain America does it, then it's right.
I got to thinking of it in the Ultimates where he's like, "Does this say F on my hat, like on my helmet?"
Yeah. Is this letter? Do you think this A stands for France?
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
Which is a stupidest line ever, because during that time those were our allies, and we did not have that whole France is just a whole bunch of surrender monkeys mentality with them. They were our allies. They were our friends.
He worked with the French resistance.
But Carter lands and says, "Lafayette, we are here," in recognition of the French help in the American Revolution.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
It's just another reason why I hate Mark Millar as a writer, because he made
I've been here so bad I can see it.
He made Captain America this ultra conservative asshole, which is not what he's supposed to be. And he would never have been chosen to become Captain America by Erskine, by Dr. Erskine, if he had that mentality.
Well, everybody's dials gets turned up in the Ultimates. That's what the whole purpose of the series is.
Jim, go ahead, sir.
So
Spider-Man was just fine.
That line, right? He pointing it. He's a splash page. I hate it. The best thing that line gives us is Ed Brubaker, doing his phenomenal run in Captain America, has a 2-page rebuttal, a 2-page substantive rebuttal where Cap talks about solving in France and not understanding what the modern day America, because remember, Brubaker's writing in post 9/11. We're doing the freedom fighters nonsense as a country, and Cap is commenting specifically on America's relationship with France. And it's 2 pages where he talks to Sharon Connell. And he's like, I don't understand this. Like, what is this knee-jerk reaction we're having? Like, these people helped us in the revolution. We've helped them. Like, and we would not have gotten those 2 pages if it wasn't for this awful splash page that's ugly, and I hate the color saturation. It's vindictive is what it is.
Can we take as given that Mr. Miller might have some flaws as a creator? I'm willing to
Mark Millar has a ton of flaws as a creator.
I feel like
I can't stand his writing. I have not liked anything I've ever read from him.
Can I give you some good news? Can I give you some good news?
No, I can't. The fact that all his stuff is constantly being made into movies and series is pissing me off.
Can I give you some good news that might cheer you up?
Sure.
The Captain America statue is still around.
Where's it at?
It's in a shopping mall.
Oh, of course.
in the New York area, right in front of a Bed Bath & Beyond. I see it today.
That's very fitting.
Yeah, a monument to capitalist America. Yeah, you bet.
Yeah,
which shopping mall? I'm gonna be in New York next month. I'll stop there.
He's gonna go get his picture taken with Captain America.
100. Yes, absolutely. Yes, that is exactly what I'm going to do.
I would too. I'd be right there with you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to do 2 things for you there, Mike. I'm going to send you a private chat with the Atlas Obscura link, and then I will go ahead and share it so our listeners and our viewers can find out exactly where this is as well.
One thing, the one person who has been commenting, I forget your name. He did make a mention that what if the bad guy is the repatriation council, and I think he's onto it. I think they like.
Could be Hydra somehow.
I don't think it's going to be Hydra, but superhero stories have that sort of built-in distrust of any sort of government agency. Like it's an easy villain to make.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if we find out, and this is not me speculating, but if we find out that the power broker owns shares in this company and that he's just trying to, manipulate markets or something, that would not surprise me at all.
I think that the GRC is a perfect example of the classic problem in superhero stories, that you can't change the real world. Because it wouldn't be the GRC in the real world, right? It would be the UN.
Yeah.
It would be the United Nations. But you can't punish the United Nations in your superhero show because the next day the United Nations is still around, right? So they create the GRC instead, so that by the end of this show or by the end of the story, because the GRC story might be longer than this series, right? Like because we're doing these series in sequence, it might go past this show and get picked up in the She-Hulk show or the, who knows what. But anyway, but they can say, okay, well, the GRC is doing things wrong and we're going to take away some of their funding, or we're going to put a new person in charge, or we're going to do something. We're going to, we're going to fix that problem in a way that they can't do if it's the UN. They can't put a new person in charge of the UN without us all saying, that's not who's in charge of the UN. Although none of us probably could, except maybe Jim, could tell me who's in charge of the UN right now. That seems like the kind of thing Jim would know. But I don't. Last guy I remember is Kofi Annan, and he was like 20 years ago. So
it's Antonio Gutierrez.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. So they can. I don't think they'll be revealed as the villain, but I think that the way that they've created the bad guy, or they've created this institution which is flawed, and they'll fix it somehow. They can fix it, like put a new person in charge or whatever, to revamp it, course correct it.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely time and space, but they haven't done anything but put it in a bad light. Like I don't remember anything so far from the 4 episodes where it's like, oh yeah, GRC, awesome, great, you guys are helping.
Yeah, they've got this problem. The problem is like I actually we haven't really talked about the world building in these last couple of episodes, but it's continuing and I like it. I had at first I had a hard time really getting like, why is the blip such a problem? Why is it so bad? Why is it creating all this economic hardship? But then they explained it. Like, okay, so you've got this refugee crisis. There's like 60 or 80 million people displaced in the world right now, depending on how you count them. And when half of all human beings disappear, well, we need those people now. Like, like all the refugee problem in the world vanished overnight. So now that's good. Like we fixed that problem, and then they all come back, and some of them. Not only do you have like, okay, well we need a plumber because our plumber disappeared in the snap, so we're hiring you. You're the new plumber. 5 years later, the plumber comes back and he wants his job, right? But we've given it to this refugee, and then there's a bunch of refugees that appear in the camps that have all been closed down because there aren't any more refugees. Half of the refugees come back, right? I see now. I understand now the economic ramifications of the blip. And it's a classic example, again, like the GRC, of creating a fictional problem so that you can solve it without disturbing the status quo of your world, right?
I rewatched all the Avengers since last week, and like they definitely start positing that in Endgame, because like Paul Rudd gets out of the thing, he's like, kid, what happened to this place?
Yeah.
Kid's just like bikes away.
Yeah.
But like, everything's derelict. But they other than that, like I don't remember anything anywhere else in that where they're like, oh, and also like all these people had their houses foreclosed and seized by the bank, and
Yeah, I'm not really. Yeah, but this show has made that's become a recurring subplot in this.
Yeah,
in
like
this
they actually
series.
went to the bank and the guy like explained it explicitly. Like, this is how you're screwed because of the blip, everyone.
Yeah.
And
You know
can I just say how much
Please.
I hate the name blip?
Like,
That's pretty stupid.
Well, full stop. There was actual thing in science called the bloop, which is this weird sound that went off in the ocean. So whenever anyone says blip, my brain automatically goes to that.
Okay.
Because we all know it was the snap. Like
Yeah.
everyone, like if you said it was the snap, everyone would immediately go. But when I'm watching this TV show, I have to mentally remind myself, oh, they're talking about Thanos' snap, as opposed to, like, I have to explain watching the show with other people, like, okay, the blip is just what they call the snap.
Why don't they call it the snap?
I don't know.
Because only so many people were there to know the cause of it. I'm not sure how many people are aware of the cause.
Would they?
I'm sure all the Avengers would have given like there would have
It
been a
also would have been,
congressional
like,
meeting.
How many people actually pay attention to the reasons behind things?
It would also be a very traumatic event, right? And to know that it happened at just like the snap of some thing's fingers would be a lot for some people to like handle.
Change this question. I'm not talking about why do they call it the blip in character. I'm asking why did the writers choose to call it the blip instead of the snap, which is what everybody was already calling it.
Yeah.
That feels a little bit like producer bullshit to me. Where they're like, I just want
It's not a cosmic cube; it's a telesat, right?
Yeah,
Well, maybe
that's right,
they don't want the shadow of Thanos looming over these stories.
But
So they call
he's
something
very
flippant.
much him.
Well, yes, but
Like you can watch these full episodes and be like, you know what, Thanos was right. Like you can use these episodes as a reason to bolster your bullshit argument that Thanos was correct.
I'm going to make a guess. And this is like lit brain working here. If I call something the snap, if something snaps, it's broken. Right?
That blip is just an interruption. Yeah.
But a blip is an
yeah.
interruption. And they didn't
Good
want
point.
it to sound like a permanent break. They wanted it to sound like an interruption.
According to Wikipedia, the blip is supposed to describe the entire event as a whole. The snap was what dusted everyone. The blip is supposed to represent the full event. Okay. The snap, the time between, and everyone coming back.
Yeah, but that's slicing hairs. And I don't know. It's an interesting question.
I still don't like it. Like it's not going to change my mind. It sounds funny when people are talking about a blip, like because a blip sounds like something that shows up on my radar. It's like, okay, I got to avoid that thing.
Yeah.
Like it sounds like it's something I can move away from. Like we all know that the meta plot is like the MCU broke. Like there's going to be a before and after of Endgame.
Yeah.
Like we're not going to have those Avengers. We'll have young Avengers. We'll have new Avengers. We won't have those Avengers.
Right.
Like we're not going to have the old school.
Great Lakes Avengers.
Yes. Or West Coast Avengers. Let's put John Walker with the white vision and have Jason pull out the last of his tail.
By the way, watch it, buddy. There's some really great conversations going on about Walker's costume and how it's designed and how it specifically is designed to make you not like him. Like there's a bunch of stuff going on about the physical costume. For example, the stripes aren't just horizontal stripes. They have like a little bump on them, which is exactly the pattern of like a yellow jacket or a wasp, right? The black and yellow pattern that makes people. It also has like a mechanical kind of pattern to it. That he's got lots of plastic red tubing that makes it look like veins. But my favorite bit is the mask, because the mask gives him a permanently furrowed brow. Like it's got like a jutting forehead kind of thing going on. It's wider on the sides so that it makes his face look wide rather than sleek and, good chin like the old Steve Rogers had. But also there's the patches underneath his eyes are unusually textured. Can you give us that shot of when he says, They weren't even super soldiers again because it's a great close up of his face.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it.
And it's textured underneath his eyes, so it looks like exposed muscle. And when that combined with his forehead gives him the facial profile of the Red Skull. It's fascinating when you look at it. So anyway, there's some really great conversations going on about Walker's costume.
So
I really recommend it. Yeah.
like 2 episodes ago or whatever, I was talking about Iron Patriot, and I watched all the Avengers movies again, and I completely forgot. Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Oh no.
It's sorry, I couldn't find it's various clips of John Walker looking like John Walker.
Yeah.
I completely forgot about War Machine getting like recolored. And,
Yeah.
Do you remember the color scheme he had?
You mean
Yeah, that was the you mean in Iron Man 3 when they made
Red,
the
White,
Iron
Blue,
Patriot?
Oh, did they full? Oh, I completely forgot about the Iron Patriot in Iron Man 3. Okay, never mind. Ignore me entirely. Yeah, that was all gun or whatever. Because I was like, oh yeah, because who loves the government and they might give the shield to that is a superhero.
No, I still think, Mike, that you nailed it in like episode 2. They're going to give the shield to Isaiah.
Eventually.
And also it occurred to me, I think, to me that feels like a what's the name of the political movement to compensate Black Americans? Reparations. It feels like a reparations thing, right? Like,
Oh, maybe.
like we don't know what to do with this. We don't really know who it belongs to. We're going to give it to you because you've been shafted by the government. Like America has done you wrong, and as partial compensation for what it's done, we're going to give this to you, and you can do whatever you think is best with it.
I think narratively and structurally, like from a meta plot perspective, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But narratively and structurally, in a 6 to 8 episode TV show, to give it to someone we've only met maybe in the background who wasn't even name dropped, it's a little bit of a stretch. Maybe Sam gets the shield at the end and he says, "I'm going to be the caretaker of the shield, the interim Captain America, until someone better comes along to replace me." And then that sets up Isaiah Bradley getting it later on.
I'm not talking about Eli. I'm not talking about Eli the kid. I'm talking about Isaiah, the guy that we've seen. Right?
I still think Eli, but
okay.
And interestingly, they keep showing him in the what happened previously on, even though he's not in any of these episodes, right? Like this episode, number 4, they showed us Isaiah again, even though we haven't seen him since episode 2, right? They're reminding us that Isaiah is in this show, even though he hasn't come back. I think he's the gun on the mantelpiece.
do we have 4 more episodes or just 2?
Yeah.
Just 2.
Just 2? Okay. Yeah, it is definitely not enough time to like get him.
Yeah, we can't introduce the young Patriot yet.
Well,
Yeah.
the universe isn't ready for the Young Avengers yet, right? Like they're all still kids.
Yeah, like once the next, like maybe season 2 Captain America, that's what Winter Soldier, that's what we get.
It's so great, like being in this world where actors age instead of being in a comic book where everyone is 35 forever, right?
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, and you can see right there underneath.
Yeah, dude.
And
that is very skull-like.
Most of his costume is not textured; it's very smooth, which is weird, right? Like for a Hollywood superhero costume, everything is normally over detailed, right? Like Superman's suit has to be made up of a million little tiny S shields, shit like that. but in Walker's suit is not like that. And so the few moments where it is like that under eye patterning really stands out. And yeah, they made him look kind of like the Red Skull. Personally, I think Zemo's going to put a bullet in Walker's brain at the end of this show.
I mean, I think we all like that, but I don't know.
I mean, he's a great character, and he'd be a great villain. And I think and if they leave him alive, there's a lot of narrative potential there. But he's now become the thing that Zemo hates, and I think Zemo's gonna.
You don't think the Wakandans are gonna get Zemo at the end of the show?
He might. I don't know. I mean, I've written as I have written elsewhere. I think it was yesterday's thread, or maybe 2 days ago. I've been thinking about Mike's desire for a Thunderbolts series, and I did a list of all the possible characters that Zemo could recruit for his Thunderbolts, including everybody from Mordo, whose Too Many Sorcerers line is actually a pretty great lineup for Zemo's goals, to Ghost and Goliath from Ant-Man and the Wasp, or somebody like Batroc the Leaper, who we've already seen as a recurring villain. But the most interesting idea was, I think, Jim's, that we bring in Abomination. We bring the Abomination back, because the Abomination, only in the MCU, the Abomination is a super soldier victim.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
And so he's uniquely tied to Zemo. Like that, it fits into this whole plot line in a way it wouldn't if it was a comic book story. And of course, who knows where the Abomination is? General Thunderbolt Ross, right? So you can very easily see him getting Zemo. Zemo gets the Abomination, and then everybody starts calling them the Thunderbolts because it's General Ross's team. It's kind of perfect.
I would like to debate this with you, but we've been at this for an hour now, and I have 5 minutes.
All right, Bloody Shield. So, that was a really powerful moment. And I don't know. So I watched the episode like 3 times now, and I feel like it was paced very, very quickly, even though it didn't feel that way the first time I watched it. I think I was just enraptured. And by the third watching, I was like, holy shit, this is like bam, bam, bam. This is practically Me's video. And yeah, that was pretty brutal. Wasn't totally surprised that Battlestar died. I think we were predicting that was going to be Battlestar. It was going to be the like turning moment for John Walker. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I expected. I mean, part of me expected he might just shoot somebody in the face, like in public. But like, really, the shield use with the blood, like that's
It was more powerful.
Yeah.
I found it interesting how they did not show any blood until this shot.
Yeah.
Right. And
well,
also,
there was the shot of the man's hands going
on the steps,
and it's covered in blood.
Yeah.
Battlestar dying is a great contrast to how the original Steve Rogers Cap dealt with Bucky's death.
Yeah.
And it shows Walker is not Steve Rogers, right? Like he can't deal with failure in the way that Steve was also haunted by failure, but he used that failure as a motivator to help him be better, right?
In a good way, in a not angry way.
That's right. He was sad, but focused. Whereas Walker gets angry, and we get this.
Lashes out at the first target that is viable.
Yeah, and the guy's like surrendering, right? Like
Hold on. John knows how to make the right decisions in the heat of battle. If you recall from the very short 2-minute dialogue sequence we got with Battlestar to humanize him right before his death.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I got to wrap things up. Let the conversation go out longer, but do we want to just leave it at that, or make any speculations on next week's episode?
So what
I speculate nothing as usual.
I'm
any
out of that
closing
game.
thoughts then? Was it?
My sort of closing takeaway is a reminder that these are fictional characters.
Yeah.
And you can have a fictional character do whatever you want as long as you give them proper context. So the immediate reaction to the shield decapitation was, well, Steve would never do that. Well, no, Steve did do that. Steve did that to a vampire Nazi who was going to take over London. Like, he had no choice. Like, they clearly put that scene, and it's sort of shot, like the panel setting up is sort of shot the way this is handled. But it's all giving the character a proper context. This guy is not a Nazi vampire taking over London.
Right.
That we know of. Sorry.
I think
this show is not that cool.
we're still going to get like humanized Zemo right up till the very end of the episode. And that's where they're going to do the Zemo pulls his betrayal. Zemo betrayal. That's my guess for episode 5.
I mean, the show tells us what's happening, right? Zemo's now alone, so we're going to see him being Zemo now. This is Zemo's soliloquy moment. Before, Zemo's always been around other people, so we could never really trust what he was saying or what he was doing. But now he's going to be around people that he trusts, and so he can be himself for the first time since this show has really started.
Yeah, that's true.
And then we're going to see the ramifications of Walker. I mean, Walker's going to, like, how is the government going to deal with this? Are they going to congratulate him for what he's doing? Are they going to, they're going to call him, they're going to wash their hands? Is that what was that the,
I think they're just going to brush it under the carpet. What do we do with cops who do this? We make excuses for them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We make excuses until the video goes viral and they get fired. Like what happened.
Yeah, I think he might go rogue,
How many
guys.
times has that happened?
I think he's going to be like, I got to get Flag Smash to prove myself and redeem myself in the eyes of the government and the American people.
Yeah,
And
he's
I'll
going
do
to
whatever
go
they do.
007.
Yeah.
I think John Walker's a lot more interesting character if he goes rogue. But we can talk about that more next week because we are at 65 minutes. So thanks everybody for checking us out. William King, appreciate you showing up and commenting, sir. It was a blast having you. And to everyone else, we will catch you next time on the BAMF podcast.